Thinking about the next campaign I want to run, I had several ideas. You can see those ideas in a doc I linked to in the doobly-doo, by the way. Now, I could have just picked one, and my players would have been fine with that. They expect me to determine what kind of game we're going to play. I'm the DM, it's my world. I set the tone, and the stakes, and the look, and the feel, and they expect this. It's something of a dictatorship. But there's no reason to assume that the game I want to run is the one they want to play. And it's not binary, by the way. Some players, you can tell, they're just happy to be playing D&D. But they're not having fun because of your game. This bothers some DMs. It used to bother me. But these days I find as long as 1 or 2 players are engaging with my content, I'm happy. Everyone's happy. It's okay that some players are just there to play D&D. That's how I've always done it. I'm the one investing the time to build the world and design the adventure. I get to decide what that world is like and what that adventure is. When you have a car and you're driving, you can pick the music. Until then, we're listening to Xanadu from Exit Stage Left. I don't know why. Maybe because of the things I've learned at Turtle Rock. Maybe because I just had several ideas and I couldn't pick one. But this time I put the choice of what campaign I'm going to run next in front of the players. I let them pick. That's what the doc in the doobly-doo is. I sent that doc to my players and asked, what do you want to play? Folks who've been following me on Twitter know which campaign they chose. I'm not going to tell you. No spoilers. Putting that choice in front of the players was something I'd never done before, but I did something else new. I ranked each campaign along 3 axes. I thought of it like a graphic equalizer, little sliders I was setting that told you, the player, how important this stuff was going to be to help you pick. For instance, I run a very tactical game. I always have. I think a good session is half roleplay, half fighting, and the outcomes of those fights are meaningful. We're not just grinding for loot. But a game in which the heroes explore a mega dungeon is very different than a game about politics and nation building. You know, you say it's the Lord of the Rings, but the whole thing is about exploring Moria, and some people are like, that's it? We never leave this one place? We never get to meet the Ents or visit Rohan or Minas Tirith? We never get to meet Elrond or visit the Prancing Pony? Those are all things someone playing in a Middle-earth game might be looking forward to. Some players hear Moria is the whole campaign and they think, sounds awesome. The goal then with your campaign pitch doc is to set expectations. In my experience, players will often play along with your ideas, often very weird ones, if they know in advance what the game is about. In other words, it's a lot more likely your players will get into the spirit of things if they know what the spirit of the thing is. You know, typically we spring our campaign on our players. We assume the content is going to be a surprise. But I don't know why this should be. We expect previews and trailers of literally everything in our lives. Why not our D&D campaign? If you read my pitch doc, you can tell there are no spoilers in there. No hint at the drama, the reversals in store for the players. The bands in my graphic equalizer were politics, role-playing, and tactics, and I ranked each of them low, medium, and high. Right? 3 bands, or axes, or whatever, and each one is ranked from 1 to 3. This is important. If you write up a pitch doc like this, you will be tempted to just blast your players with every possible element of a D&D campaign you can think of, and then rank them from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. That's natural, but I strongly recommend against doing that. For one thing, not everything is equally important to you. What are the 3 most important things about your campaign? The answer to that question tells your players a lot about your game. If you just blitz them with a dozen little sliders, their eyes will cross and they'll stop reading. You will be so proud that you were so comprehensive. Look, I included everything. Look how detailed I was. Surely now my players have all the information they might ever need. When in fact, what will happen is your players will open your pitch doc, see how crazy long it is, and close it. Your goal as a writer should be to make sure your audience keeps reading. And that means doing less, not more. This is an important lesson. Also, notice when you read it, I kept each summary super brief. I hit on the central tension and I moved on. Less is more. Say something dramatic, hook the players, and you've done your job. I chose politics, tactics, and role-playing because I thought they would help the players make a good decision. I didn't define these categories. I expected the players to intuit what my sliders meant. But for the purposes of this video, let me explain what I was thinking. Politics, basically, are there a lot of factions? Do they scheme? Are their goals often opaque and the players sometimes get frustrated because they don't yet know all the factions and folks sometimes serve secret masters? Will low-level characters feel like there are big, powerful forces they don't understand guiding the world? Will they get confused by all the actors on the stage? That's not necessarily a bad thing. In a high politics game, low-level characters should be frustrated by their ignorance. It's what makes figuring it all out feel like an accomplishment. Note that only one of the 4 campaigns I pitched had a high politics rating. I would have been very happy running a big dungeon crawl. Tactics, I could have called combat. How important to you is grid-based combat? Did you grow up playing Final Fantasy Tactics or XCOM? High tactics means you're going to spend entire sessions sometimes fighting your way through an adventure. Low tactics means it might hardly ever happen, or maybe combat is theater of the mind. To me, medium means we're spending about half our time fighting. Role-playing just means how much time are you going to spend negotiating? It doesn't mean how much time you spend speaking in character or acting. I consider those things entirely optional. But interacting with NPCs is required, and role-playing is not just how often, but how important is it? Even a dungeon can have high politics and role-playing. Lots of well-designed dungeons have many warring factions within. As far as I'm concerned, these are a requirement for any dungeon. Then I added something I think is super important: player buy-in. In other words, what attitude is required for the players to have fun? The campaign will only work if you folks... ... There's no slider for this, just an explanation. You saw the L5R video I made? The player buy-in for that campaign might say, you need to care about who the next emperor is, or you need to care about your clan. Your clan's politics and status have to be important to you if you're going to have fun. I think you can already see how useful describing player buy-in is. It removes ambiguity. If no one cares about this one part, we're not going to have fun. If you, as a player, think, that doesn't interest me, then tell your DM they need to know this. I felt like my 3 sliders, politics, tactics, role-playing, could be used to meaningfully describe any campaign in a way that would be useful to the players. But maybe you like different sliders. Something I could have included is self-direction. How much does your campaign rely on the players developing their own goals? I think you can have years of fun just running adventures, where you put an adventure in front of the players and they do it. You, the DM, are always picking the quest. That would be self-direction low. A game with self-direction high might still begin with a quest given by you, but pretty quickly the DM-provided plot hooks run out, and the players have to come up with their own things to do, their own ambitions. A West Marches campaign would be self-direction high. A mega dungeon would be low, because you, the DM, already picked the adventure, and this is the thing we're going to be exploring for the next couple of years. Or maybe not. A good mega dungeon has tons of factions and plot hooks, and it would be perfectly possible for the players to invent their own goals within the context of this underground environment. What about magic? We all have an idea of whether a world or a setting is high magic or low magic. How common is magic? Are there magic shops? Can PCs make magic items? Can they do it at low levels? Can they invent new spells? One of the things I loved about Ptolus is the fact that it was designed to have everything in it you can do in 3rd edition D&D. Even very low-level characters can make magic items in 3rd edition, so Ptolus has tons of magic in it. Walking the streets of this massive city, if you look up, you might see someone using a magic carpet to get around, a service available to anyone with enough coin. My friend Phil is running a game that is so low magic, our characters are literally the first people in living memory to cast spells, which, being a cleric in a game where casting a 1st-level Cure Wounds makes you literally a miracle worker it's pretty cool. It means, I am the chosen one!
I've always felt like I might be the chosen one. What?
What about lethality? That's a good slider. How deadly is your game? Don't put high just because you want to put the fear of God into your players. Make sure you've thought about what high lethality means to you. Does it mean the bad guys run the world and every battle is against overwhelming odds? Does it mean life and death are random? There was a lot of save or die in the original game back in the day, and that it's fun for everyone else watching to see how you roll, whether your character lives or dies, but it's not really fun for you. High lethality, to me, means like half the party might die on their way to 5th level. And even after that, it's possible a character might die, but there will always be a reason. It won't be random. It won't be save or die. But you might be running a more pulpy game, or one more inspired by Game of Thrones, and you like the idea of major characters kicking the bucket for no obvious reason. That's the kind of thing, by the way, players will definitely not like if it's a surprise, and they were looking forward to hanging on to their characters. What about levity? How seriously do you expect your players to take your game? How social do you expect it to be? Are you okay with non-game related conversations taking everything over? Often, when I get together to game with my friends from high school, it's the first time I've seen them in weeks or months, and I'm happy just to talk and hang out. And generally, so are they. But then someone must get us back on track and get the game going. This is also a useful measure of how silly your game is going to be. Do you intend on featuring lots of funhouse dungeons? Do your NPCs talk like they know they're in a role-playing game? I think if you're playing with friends you've known forever, especially if you've played together before, you don't need this. Everyone knows what to expect. But a new game with new players, I think a levity rating could be very useful. Players who expect a serious game, but who get a comic one, are probably going to have a bad time. Personally, my games are more of the blood, love, and rhetoric school. I can do you blood and love without the rhetoric, and I can do you blood and rhetoric without the love, and we can do all three concurrent or consecutive, but I cannot do you love and rhetoric without the blood. It's all blood, you see. How about rating? Is your game M-rated? Should your players expect graphic descriptions of violence? Do you imagine sexual assault is going to be a feature of your game? Look, I'm on the record about this, but don't mistake my meaning. If everyone at the table thinks it's cool, knock yourself out. High weirdness. Is there sci-fi in your game? What about Cthulhu monsters and extra-dimensional travel? I use high weirdness as a catch-all for this so you can give your players some idea of what they're getting into but not spoil things for them. Going to another plane when your PCs are 13th level is not what I'm talking about. That's normal for D&D. I mean, is it common? Will you encounter that stuff at low levels? A game inspired by Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones is not going to have a lot of high weirdness. But a Conan game or one set in Greyhawk might have medium weirdness. And a Planescape game or a Cthulhu game where all PCs inevitably go insane and heroism is useless, those are high weirdness games. What about character focus? Will you mine your players' backstories to create plots and bad guys, or do you already have the world and plots laid out and it's up to your players to find their way in? I think this can be an incredibly useful label. You know, my game is more about the players dealing with the world than it is the world dealing with the players. I'll mine my players' backstories, but only when I see the opportunity present itself. I don't make a point of sitting down with their backstories and building out character arcs. But I could. There are other sliders I can think of, but I don't want to hog all the fun. What's important to you? By that, will your players know your campaign? Obviously, you don't need to pitch your campaign. I ran D&D for decades without ever doing it, but it can't hurt to think about telling your players what they're in for. I think it means they'll have more fun, and it will probably inform what characters they create. How can it not? That was the campaign pitch video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Even if you don't end up pitching the idea to your characters, I think there's a lot in there to think about regarding how you define your campaign. What else is going on? What else is happening? January is new Game Master month, so we did a live stream yesterday with a whole bunch of gaming luminaries that I know. Unfortunately, I screwed up the time zones, and something I thought was happening 2 hours after 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, was happening 2 hours before at 3. And I'm at work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday, so I could not participate. But you will find the video on YouTube. I'm going to upload it as soon as I'm done filming this video. I thought it was super good, by the way. I thought chat was excellent. The community we built here is fantastic. So having these people, some of whom are friends of mine, as guests on my Twitch channel, it was fantastic to see them react to the kind of questions people were asking. And afterwards, privately, they told me, your community is amazing. So that's you folks, by the way, is who they're talking about. Now, because I said I was going to be live yesterday, and I wasn't, we're going to be live tonight. 6 o'clock tonight, which as I record this is in about 4 hours. We're going to jump on Twitch, and we're just going to hang out and talk about D&D and random stuff. I saw Shape of Water. Maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows? And maybe we'll cover some of the new Game Master stuff that people wanted to ask me, but I was not around yesterday. Also, the Kickstarter is coming super soon. I'm just waiting on a couple of things. I'm waiting for a piece of art to show you folks, to give you some idea of what your pledge is going to get you. And also, I'm waiting on a sample from somebody who makes minis, because we're going to try and make minis for this. Minis for the unique, some of the new monsters that are going to be in this book. I know it's been a long time since we started talking about this Kickstarter, but I had the Critical Role comic that I was working on, which, by the way, I am done with. I have finished issue 6. The script for issue 6 is done. So now I have a lot more time to myself and I can concentrate on stuff like the Kickstarter. But also my friends and I are really afraid that we're going to screw this Kickstarter up. And so we have made a point to make sure we have vendors lined up for everything and we have quotes for everything so that when we put pledge levels in front of you folks, we don't end up, like a lot of people's first Kickstarter, they mess it up and they underestimate stuff. And I'm sure we'll screw something up. Right? It's the first time we've ever done it, but hopefully we won't screw up how much it costs to make the things that you folks are going to pledge for. People often freak out if I do a live stream that they can't make it to, and they ask, will it be on YouTube? And the answer is, I don't know. That depends on whether or not it's any good. I thought the Xanathar's guide stream we did was pretty poor. It wasn't fun just to sit there and watch me read through the different bard options that they have now and stuff like that. I think that stuff is more fun to play than it is to read. So the Xanathar's guide did not go up, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The streams we do, the live streams we do on Twitch, are archived on Twitch for 30 days. You have an entire month to get caught up. And our live streams, this is not Critical Role. This is just me hanging hanging out with you folks in chat, it's usually about an hour, maybe 2 hours long. Another thing I noticed not everybody understands is that my novels, by the way, Priest and Thief, if you want to help support the channel, come by my Amazon page. I am an independent fantasy author. These are on Kindle, but you don't have to have a Kindle in order to read them. You can read them on any tablet or any smartphone. You can get the Kindle app on any of them. That's how I read most of my books. So I see people often be like they're waiting for Christmas or their birthday to get a Kindle. And I'm like, you don't need a Kindle if you have an iPad. And I think a lot of people have iPads. If you have an iPad or a smartphone, you can read any Kindle book on it. All right, folks, that's it. If you're around tonight at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, come by Twitch TV/Matt Colville, and we're just going to hang out and have fun. And if you can't make it, it'll be on Twitch for at least 30 days after that. And who knows, it'll maybe be on YouTube too. I know I promised you folks a backgrounds video, but that turned into kind of a thing. So it's going to take a little bit longer for me to prep that. Until next time, peace out.